Now we're ready to begin going over our storyboard and how to create them. When we inserted this assembly, the program automatically created a storyboard. And here you can see by default there's a snapshot, which is really just a point in time. It's a picture, an image. And then the storyboard is here. And the difference from a visuals perspective is the storyboard will look like a film strip or a negative. And it is actually a container that will hold other storyboards and snapshots. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this to enter that storyboard, and you can see the breadcrumb is updated. So I've got our storyboard and then this trebuchet machine storyboard, which has its nested default storyboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this initial default one, and I'm going to double click its name to change the name to disassembly, because we have the components all put together and we're going to show how to take them apart. And I will double click into that, and again the breadcrumb updates so you can see where we are in this nested storyboard system. So I mentioned snapshots. Again, they are the frames, or if you think of a comic strip, is a group of snapshots. Each frame tells a piece of the story. So we will start off by creating a new snapshot, and again I drag straight down, I right clicked and drag straight down to launch that snapshot command. And it created my first snapshot. I'm going to name this starting point. And it's important to name, I think it's a good practice to name your snapshots as you're going along, because it will help you recognize where you are in the process, and the names that you give to the snapshots will actually be used when the instructions are actually published. So they become very useful, and it's something that you can do while you're building the instructions. So the first snapshot shows all the parts assembled, and I'm ready to move on to my next snapshot. And what's happening is I'm going to change my orientation, and each action that I take is actually being recorded in the background for that snapshot. So I've set my view orientation, and here what I want to do is start by removing the projectile from the system. Okay, and the projectile is this ball right here in the center. And what I want to do is select that, and I'm going to go right click, and you can see in my right click the move is up to the left again. So I'm going to right click and drag up to the left and hit move. And I'm going to select this component, and you'll see that the UCS, or user coordinate system, for this object shows up. Now because this is a sphere, it shows up a little crooked, which is okay, because next to the origin of that UCS you can actually see a little icon, and when you hover over it, it will bring up a menu where you can select to align that UCS. And when I click align, I then can select another component or edge, and here I'm going to select the edge on this base component, and it will align the UCS to that edge. And that's helpful because now I know that when I drag, it's going to be in an orientation that matches the model, and I can just click and drag this component out away from the model. And as I hit the edges of this screen, it actually automatically changes your view so that you can continue to see the component you're moving. So with that move, I'm actually done with my next snapshot. So I will go ahead and create my next snapshot. And I'm going to actually go ahead and collapse this ribbon bar by double clicking it so that it's hidden, just so we have some more screen real estate for the presentation. So my next snapshot, I actually want to remove these pins here that are holding some of the components on. So I'm going to zoom in on them, and I'm going to name it this snapshot remove pins. And then what I'll do is I will actually select that component, drag up and to the left, and use the arrow to just move this component a little bit out of the pin. I'm going to do the same for this pin up here. I'm going to drag up and to the left, and I'm going to move this a little bit off of that pin in this direction. There we go. So I'll move up. So now I've created that snapshot where those pins were removed, and I'm going to go ahead and right click and drag to create another snapshot. And now I'm going to do remove clavis pins, which are the pins that hold the weight and the arm onto this center component. So I'm going to go ahead and click that component and hold my shift key down and select this other pin. right click and drag up to the left or turn on the move command, and then I will just slide those out to the right a little bit. Now, I could create a new snapshot here, but I actually moved these pins purposely just out so that I could animate them along with the clavis pins. So I'm going to drag up into the right, and now I'm going to move these off to the left. And because I've made this explosion with these pins and the explosion of these pins in the same snapshot, they will actually animate at the same time when we go back through the presentation. So now that we've done a few screens and a few snapshots, let's go ahead and do that and actually view what we've done so far. If I double click on the starting point snapshot, it will reassemble everything and we're back at the starting point. If I right click, one of the options is to play this animation. And again, what I was saying before is with each snapshot, the system is capturing those actions that you're taking in order to animate them. So I'm going to go ahead and play that animation, and you will see the explosions beginning to happen. Okay, so that went a little quick, so let me go ahead and right click, and the reset option or play from the beginning is at the top, and we'll play that again. One of the things I notice is that the very first move of removing that projectile from the system actually happens at the same time that the camera moves, and I don't like that. So what I can do is I'm going to actually stop this presentation and show you another feature in the system, and that is a different storyboard configuration. Right now we've been using the thumbnail view, and I'm going to switch to timeline view. What timeline view does is actually shows you a list of all the things that have been changed during that snapshot. I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this very first one because that was the default one that came in, and we still are, now we're back to just having the starting point. But so the starting point, everything was in its position, nothing happened in that one. The second snapshot was the removing of the projectile, and you can actually see that this camera view, I'm going to jump back there, the camera view happens and the projectile is removed in the same frame. So if I double click this, you'll see the camera move and the projectile move at the same time. And that's the component I want to fix. So what I can actually do is in this mode, I can activate the starting point by double clicking on it. And I can right click and say new snapshot. And what that does is inserts a new snapshot between the starting point and the projectile removing. I'm going to go ahead and name this change view and simply drag the camera view over to this snapshot. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have everything assembled, the camera is going to move, then the projectile is going to be taken out. So if I start this, and actually let me go ahead and just play it. Now the camera moves, then the projectile is removed. We zoom in and the pins are moved. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this one more time. I'm going to make this camera, when these pins are removed, I'm going to actually move it out of this frame, or this snapshot as well. So again, double click the snapshot right before where you want to insert a snapshot. Create a new snapshot which inserts it. I'm going to add another change view. And I'm going to move this camera view up to that new frame as well. So now that we've done that, let me go ahead and switch back to the thumbnail view. I'm going to activate the starting point. So now I'll go ahead and play that. And we can see that the camera view changes, the projectiles are removed, we zoom in, the pins are pulled out, and then all sets of pins are animated away from the assembly at the same time. So now that's actually in this arrangement that I like, and I can go ahead and continue taking this assembly apart.